Okay, we often hear people talk about tribalism and how our society is degenerating into a battle between either right-wing tribalism and patriarchy and heterosexism and the family ruling everything, or it's a oppressor versus oppressed, left-wing tribalism with ending up in Marxism. And the individualism, hyper-individualism, and liberalism particularly, the idea that an individual can define their own purposes in life and not simply inherit the purposes from the family they were born into or the political tribe they join as an adult, but can define their own expressive purposes and express themselves for its own sake. That's a relatively modern concept. It's also now kind of being challenged by postmodernism. I think there are four things about how individuals behave that are necessary in order to defend liberalism against all these challenges of the polarization today. First of all, an individual should try to be competent in as many things, not simply their core skills, but they should be able to do things for themselves and do things to help others, like change tires and change oil, fix things, be able to learn skills that they're not going to have to use often, but can use in an emergency, and also earn their own money with their own labor, not simply depend on being privileged or inheriting wealth, but earn money with their own labor, do their share of paying their dues, being able to do manual labor, that kind of thing. So that's the first point. The second point is that individuals ought to be willing to bond emotionally with others who actually need them, and where their ability to bond people in a relationship that requires complementarity would be challenged. If you think about that, a counterexample is like in the movie The Social Network, when the teenage Mark Zuckerberg is making a fun video where he's challenging two co-eds, and this is a heterosexual setting, by the way, and the person who's watching it is supposed to pick which one is the hottest. Well, you can see the problem with that when we become obsessed with who satisfies our desire to feel stimulated or aroused by someone, just because we want to be identified with them. In other words, upward affiliation. If we limit ourselves to that, and if everyone does it, we would dump a lot of people on the street, and society would have every reason to jump back to fascism. So that's the second thing. The third thing is the good thing, if you want to be an individualist, to have dependence. And indeed, in many cultures around the world, generally men had agency when they had a wife and children, that because they had people depending on them and they had their skin in the game, they had a reason to be listened to when they spoke. And people would be jealous of losing a spouse, because that would mean they would lose their claim to personal agency. Now, in today's society, that's not important like it used to be. I feel like I've had a lot of agency without a spouse at all. But generally, it's better if people have dependence. And if you don't have it, if you're not heterosexual, if you don't have a tendency to procreate and have your own children, then you kind of have to find another way. So that's where you need gay marriage, the ability to have single-sex adoption, or in vitro fertilization, for example. Those come in, and they can be important issues. The last thing is that you sort of know your own limitations, and to some extent can live within those limitations as an individual, and learn when you need to actually bond to other people and work with other people and get results for other people, and sort of answer for the results that your speech has had over time, rather than just simply keep talking when maybe your own capabilities are actually less than of those of others around you. You have to balance being an individual and speaking for yourself, and thinking critically and reacting to what people say critically, and actually working with other people and getting along to accomplish things in a group. That balance is something we don't talk about very much, but we need to be able to strike it.